The great hall of Zenith Prime Station stretched out like a metal canyon, its walls gleaming with the light of 1,000 stars visible through the transparent dome above. Ships of every imaginable design floated in the display arena, each one a masterpiece of alien engineering. The annual Galactic Military Exhibition had drawn representatives from 300 species, all eager to show off their latest weapons and vessels. Admiral Sarah Chen stood at the edge of the human delegation area, watching the other species present their warships. Her gray uniform looked plain compared to the elaborate outfits worn by the other military leaders. She kept her face neutral, but inside, she was taking notes, always taking notes. A Votheran cruiser glided into the center of the arena. The crowd gasped. The ship seemed to disappear and reappear as it moved, bending light around itself like water flowing around a stone. Its hull was smooth as glass, without a single visible seam or weapon port. The Valerian presenter, a tall being with skin that shifted colors like oil on water, spoke through the translation device. The Starwaver-class cruiser represents the peak of light manipulation technology. It can become invisible to all sensors, can redirect energy weapons back at their source, and moves faster than light without entering hyperspace. The hull is constructed from programmable matter that repairs itself instantly. We have eliminated all weaknesses of previous generation vessels. The assembled representatives applauded with whatever appendages their species possessed. Tentacles clapped against tentacles. Wings fluttered. Mandibles clicked in appreciation. Next came the Corax Hegemone's dreadnought. The massive ship looked like a living fortress, its hull covered in patterns that glowed with captured starlight. The Corax Admiral, a being that resembled a boulder with too many eyes, spoke with pride. The Sunbreaker dreadnought is powered by a contained star fragment. It can destroy a planet's surface in minutes. Its shields can withstand the explosion of a supernova. We have achieved perfection and destructive capability. More applause, more admiration. The species of the galaxy continued their presentations, each one more impressive than the last. The Mycelian collective showed their living ships grown from engineered fungus that could think and repair itself. The Crystalline Communion demonstrated vessels that existed partially in another dimension, making them nearly impossible to hit. Then it was humanity's turn. Admiral Chen walked to the center of the arena. Behind her, a human destroyer moved into view. The crowd's reaction was immediate. Whispers spread through the hall like wildfire. Some species tried to hide their amusement. Others didn't bother. The human ship looked ancient compared to what had been shown before. It was a long rectangular box with visible armor plates welded to its hull, weapons turrets stuck out at odd angles, exhaust ports vented gas into space. The whole thing looked like it had been hammered together in a workshop rather than grown in a quantum fabrication chamber. Admiral Kesathar of the Vatheran fleet stood up. His skin rippled with colors that the translation device interpreted as amusement. Admiral Chen, surely this is a historical display, a museum piece to show how far your species has come. Quiet laughter rippled through the crowd. Chen's expression didn't change. This is the UNS Defiant, a Terran-class destroyer. It represents our current military capability. Kestar's colors shifted to something like pity. I see. And these metal plates on the hull. This is your armor. Reinforced titanium and ceramic composite. Yes, layered for maximum protection. No energy shields? Asked a representative from the Quillian Assembly, her feathers ruffling with what might have been concern or mockery. No, ma'am. We use physical armor and your weapons. Kesar gestured at the turrets. Are those kinetic accelerators? You fire solid projectiles. Yes, sir. Magnetic accelerator cannons, missile systems, and point defense guns. All kinetic-based weapons. The hall erupted and barely contained laughter. One of the younger delegates from the Zephyr Collective actually pointed at the human ship, his crystalline body chiming with sounds of mirth. Kesathar held up a hand for silence. When he spoke again, his tone was gentle, like speaking to a child. Admiral Chen, I mean no disrespect to your species, but you must understand that kinetic weapons were abandoned by most galactic civilizations thousands of years ago. They are slow, inefficient, and easily countered. Energy weapons can be fired at light speed and adjusted in flight. Physical projectiles are while they are relics. We are aware of the limitations, Chen said calmly. And your propulsion system? Asked the Corfax Admiral. I detect chemical fuel exhaust. Surely you don't still use combustion for thrust. We use a hybrid system. Chemical rockets for initial thrust. Fusion drives for sustained acceleration. The Corfax Admiral's many eyes blinked in sequence. Fusion, not zero-point energy extraction, not quantum vacuum manipulation. That's correct, sir. A delegate from the Harmony Sphere, a species known for their diplomatic nature, floated forward. Her body was composed of living light, and her voice was kind. Admiral Chen, perhaps humanity should focus on trade and cultural exchange rather than military development. There is no shame in recognizing one's limitations. Not every species is meant for warfare. We appreciate the suggestion, Chen replied. Her voice was perfectly level, perfectly professional. Cassithar stood again. Admiral Chen, I will be direct, because I believe honesty serves us all better than polite fiction. The human vessels I see before me are, to be blunt, primitive. They belong in a museum, not on a battlefield. Your species uses technology that the rest of us abandoned in our ancient past. You have no shields, no energy weapons, no advanced propulsion. Your ships are held together with welds and bolts like some sort of crude construction project. He paused, his colors shifting to something somber. If you were to face even the smallest threat the galaxy has seen in the last 1,000 years, your entire fleet would be destroyed in minutes. You cannot adapt. You cannot regenerate. You cannot even move fast enough to retreat effectively. I say this not to mock you, but to save lives, human lives. Please abandon this pretense of military capability and focus on what your species does well. The hall was silent now. Every being present waited for Chen's response. They expected anger, maybe, or embarrassment. Perhaps the humans would withdraw their application for defensive fleet status. Instead, Chen smiled. It was a small smile barely visible at the corners of her mouth, but it was there. Sirs, ma'ams, and honored delegates, she said, her voice carrying through the vast hall. Humanity hears your concerns. We understand that our technology appears outdated compared to your achievements. We acknowledge that our ships lack the elegance and sophistication of your vessels. She gestured at the destroyer behind her. This ship is indeed crude. It's built with simple materials and simple methods. It uses old technology that you abandoned long ago. You're right about all of this. Cassithar's colors shifted to something like satisfaction. Then you withdraw your application for military status. No, sir. We're filing our application for defensive fleet status as planned. We're also requesting permission to establish military outposts in the frontier sectors. The confusion in the hall was immediate. Delegates turned to each other trying to understand. Why would the humans insist on this path when they were so clearly outmatched? Admiral Chen, said the Harmony Sphere delegate gently, I don't think you understand the dangers present in frontier space. There are pirates with technology far beyond yours. Rogue AI vessels that can hack any system. Spatial anomalies that can tear ships apart. You would be sending your people to their deaths. We understand the risks, ma'am. Kestar's colors went dark. This is foolishness. The Council cannot in good conscience approve a military application from a species that cannot defend itself. We would be complicit in the deaths of your crews. Chen's smile didn't waver. Then it's fortunate that we're not asking for your approval of our capability. Only recognition of our right to defend our territory and our allies. The Council Charter allows any species to maintain defensive forces. We meet the minimum requirements. The minimum requirements were written assuming basic competence. Cassithar's colors flashed with frustration. No one anticipated a species would apply with such primitive technology, Shen offered. Yes, noted. Our application stands. The Corax Admiral leaned forward. Human, you have courage. I will grant you that. But courage without capability is just another form of suicide. Your ships cannot win battles. They cannot even survive them. Chen turned to face him directly. Admiral, if I may ask, when was the last time the Corfax hegemony faced an enemy that could truly threaten your existence? The Admiral's eyes blinked in confusion. We have not faced such a threat in over 2,000 years. Our technology ensures our dominance. And the Valarians. Cassithar's colors shifted uncertainly. 3,000 years, perhaps longer. We have transcended such primitive conflicts. Chen nodded slowly. 3,000 years of peace. of technological advancement without true testing, of building weapons to impress each other rather than to survive. That's remarkable. And humanity asked the Harmony Sphere delegate, "When did your species last face extinction?" Chen's smile finally faded. Tuesday. The hall went silent. The translation devices checked themselves, convinced they had made an error. Tuesday, Kesher repeated. A figure of speech, Chen explained. But not much of an exaggeration. Humanity has faced extinction-level threats regularly throughout our history. Diseases that killed half our population. Wars that nearly turned our planet into a radioactive wasteland. Climate collapse. Asteroid impacts. Artificial intelligence rebellions. We've seen the end of our world so many times we've lost count. She gestured at the destroyer again. This ship wasn't built to impress anyone. It wasn't built to be elegant or sophisticated. It was built by a species that knows deep in its bones what it means to fight for survival against impossible odds. Every system has 3 backups. Every weapon has manual override. Every crew member is trained to fight the ship, even if every computer is dead and the hull is breached. This proves our point, Kesethar said, his colors showing confusion. You build for survival because you are weak. We build for dominance because we are strong. Perhaps Chen pulled out a data tablet and tapped a few commands. I'm filing our application now. You'll have it by tomorrow. The council will reject it, Keshar said flatly. The council will follow its own rules, Chen replied. We meet the minimum requirements. You'll approve us even if you think we're fools. The Korax admiral made a sound like grinding rocks, and when your primitive ships are destroyed by the first real threat they face. When your crews die because you were too proud to accept your limitations. Chen turned to leave, then paused. Admiral, there's an old human saying. You might want to write it down. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. What does that mean? Asked the Harmony Sphere delegate. It means that all your elegant technology and sophisticated strategies work perfectly until they don't. Until something comes along that doesn't play by the rules you've set. Something that can't be reasoned with or out-evolved. Something that just wants to destroy you and doesn't care how advanced you are. And you believe your primitive vessels would fare better in such a scenario. Kesethar's color showed clear disbelief. Chen's smile returned cold and knowing. I believe that when everything else fails, when all the sophisticated technology is useless, and all the elegant strategies are exhausted, the species that remembers how to fight dirty is the one that survives. We never forgot, Admiral. We never had the luxury of forgetting. She walked away, her delegation following behind her. The human destroyer turned and moved toward the docking bay, its crude thrusters firing in short, controlled bursts. It looked clumsy compared to the graceful vessels of other species. It looked old. It looked weak. But something about Admiral Chen's words had left a chill in the Great Hall. The Harmony Sphere delegate turned to Kesethar. Do you think they're dangerous? Kesethar's colors shifted to thoughtful blues and purples. Dangerous? No, they're too primitive to be dangerous. But I find myself unsettled. Why? Because she's right about one thing. We haven't fought a real war in thousands of years. We've forgotten what desperation looks like, what it creates. Those humans, they remember. They carry it with them like a weapon we can't see. You're overthinking this, said the Corfax Admiral. They're primitive. Their technology is laughable. If they face any real threat, they'll be destroyed. And perhaps that will teach them humility. Perhaps, Castar agreed, but his colors remained troubled. The exhibition continued. More species presented their vessels. More advanced technology was displayed. But the mood had changed somehow. The laughter had stopped. And when delegates looked at the docking bay where the human ships were berthed, they felt something they hadn't felt in centuries. Not fear exactly, not yet, but unease. The humans had come to the galaxy with primitive ships and ancient weapons. They had been mocked, pied, and dismissed. But Admiral Chen had looked at the assembled might of the galaxy and smiled like she knew something they didn't, like she was waiting for something. The exhibition ended with the usual ceremony. Awards were given. Treaties were signed. The human application for defensive fleet status was filed and would be reviewed by the council within the month. Everyone expected it to be approved out of pity, with strict limitations on where human ships could operate. As the delegates departed, returning to their homeworlds, They put the humans out of their minds. There were more important matters to attend to: trade negotiations, diplomatic functions, cultural exchanges. No one noticed that the humans had filed claims for outposts in the most dangerous regions of frontier space. No one thought to ask why they wanted to be where threats were most likely to emerge. No one wondered what Admiral Chen had been smiling about. And no one, not a single species in the entire gallery, considered that humanity's primitive technology might have been built for a purpose they couldn't imagine. That sometimes the old ways weren't abandoned because they were weak. Sometimes they were abandoned because they were too brutal for civilized beings to bear. 3 months later, the Corfusi would encounter something at the edge of their territory, something that didn't care about advanced technology or sophisticated weapons, something that adapted to everything they threw at it. 3 months later, the galaxy would stop laughing. 3 months later, they would remember Admiral Chen's smile and finally understand what it meant. But that was 3 months away. For now, the galaxy felt safe, superior, and certain of its place in the universe. They had no idea how wrong they were. The warning came at 400 hours station time. Commander Vexthor, of the Corax Hegemony, was sleeping in his quarters when the alarm pulled him from dreams of the homeworld's red mountains. His many eyes opened in sequence, adjusting to the dim light of his cabin. The alarm continued, a low pulse that meant only one thing: contact lost with an outer system. Vexthor pulled himself from his rest chamber and checked the communications console. The probe network in Sector 447 had gone dark. All 17 probes simultaneously. That shouldn't be possible. The probes were distributed across 3 light-years of space, each one independent, each one shielded against interference. He initiated the backup network. Nothing. The relays in that sector had also failed. "Get me a ship," he ordered his aide. "We need to investigate." "Sir, regulations require we report this to Fleet Command first." Vexthor's eyes focused on the aide. "And then what?" "They'll send a ship to investigate. We're already here. We are the closest vessel by the time Fleet Command processes the report and dispatches another ship. We could have this resolved." "Yes, sir." The Corax survey vessel Steadfast was not a warship, but it carried enough firepower to handle pirates or rogue mining operations. Vexthor didn't expect to need weapons. Probably just a malfunction, some kind of cascade failure in the probe network. Strange, but not unheard of. They reached Sector 447 in 6 hours. The first thing Vexthor noticed was the silence. Space was always silent, of course, but this was different. The usual background radiation, the normal quantum fluctuations, the subtle energy signatures that filled every corner of the galaxy, all gone. It was like entering a room where something had absorbed all the sound. "Sensors?" he asked, unable to get a clear reading. "Sir, something is interfering with our scans." "The colony. Set course for the colony on course 447C. 3,000 citizens there. They should be able to tell us what happened." The colony was silent too. They approached the planet carefully, scanning as they went. The colony should have been visible from orbit, a bright cluster of lights on the dark side of the planet. Instead, there was nothing. No lights, no communications, no energy signatures at all. "Land us near the main settlement," Vexor ordered. Something cold was spreading through his chest. He had been a space commander for 40 years and had never felt anything like this. The settlement was gone, not destroyed, not damaged, gone. Where buildings had stood, there was nothing but bare ground. Where roads had been, there was smooth dirt. It was as if the entire colony had been erased, carefully removed, piece by piece. "Sir," his aide whispered. "The people? Where are the people?" Vexthor had no answer. They found no bodies, no signs of struggle, no indication that anyone had ever lived here at all. Except for the bare ground where the settlement had been, there was no evidence that 3,000 Corfax citizens had ever existed. Back to the ship. Now they lifted off immediately. Vexthor composed an urgent message to Fleet Command as they accelerated away from the planet. He tried to keep his voice steady, tried to maintain the professional calm expected of a Corax officer. "This is Commander Vexthor, of the survey vessel Steadfast. Colony Core 447C has been hum comme ajwa, has experienced a total loss. All structures removed, all citizens missing. No signs of attack. No debris. Recommend immediate. The ship's sensors screamed. Something was approaching. Something massive. Sir, contact at 2 million kilometers and closing fast. On screen. The view screen showed something that made Vexthor's eyes try to close in sequence. His species' instinctive reaction to things that shouldn't exist. The vessel, if it could be called a vessel, looked like it had been grown rather than built. It was organic, all curves and ridges, like something pulled from the depths of a nightmare ocean. Parts of it pulsed with bioluminescent light. Other parts seemed to shift and change as he watched. "What is that?" his aide whispered. "I don't know." "Hail them, all frequencies." They tried every form of communication known to the galaxy. Radio waves, laser pulses, quantum entanglement signals. The organic ship didn't respond. It just kept coming. Power weapons. Prepare to fire. The Steadfast was equipped with standard Corfax plasma accelerators. Weapons that could punch through any known armor. Vex thored the approaching vessel and fired. The plasma bolt struck the organic ship surface and stopped. Not reflected. Not absorbed. It just stopped, hanging in space like it had hit an invisible wall. Then slowly, it began moving again. Back toward the Steadfast evasive, Vexthor shouted. They dodged the returning plasma bolt, but barely. The organic ship was still approaching now, only 1 million kilometers away. "Sir, it's scanning us. I can feel it. It's trying to get inside the ship's computer. Cut all external connections. Go to manual control only." They switched to backup systems, controlling the ship with physical inputs rather than computer commands. It was slower, clumsier, but it kept whatever that thing was out of their systems. "Weapons, sir. If it can throw our own fire back at us, then we try something else. Load the quantum torpedoes." Quantum torpedoes were the cutting edge of Corfax military technology. They existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making them impossible to dodge or block. Vexthor fired 3 of them. The organic ship changed. Its surface rippled like water. New structures grew from its hull. Crystalline formations that glowed with impossible colors. The torpedoes struck these formations and vanished. Not exploded. Vanished like they had been erased from reality. "Sir, it's adapting. It's learning from our attacks. Then we run. Full power to engines. Jump to hyperspace as soon as we can." The Steadfast turned and burned, accelerating as fast as its drives would allow. The organic ship followed, moving faster than it should have been able to, faster than the laws of physics should have allowed. 30 seconds to jump distance, the navigator reported. 29 seconds. 28. 27. The organic ship launched something. Not a weapon exactly, more like a piece of itself. It flew through space like a living creature, changing direction without thrusters, accelerating without visible propulsion. It hit the Steadfast's engine section. The impact wasn't hard. There was no explosion, no hull breach. But immediately, the engines began to fail. Vexthor watched in horror as the readouts showed the fusion reactor shutting down one by one. Engineering report. "Sir, there's something in the engines. It's consuming them, converting them into something else. I don't understand the readings I'm getting. It's like the metal itself is being rewritten at the molecular level. Can you stop it, sir? It's growing, spreading through the ship. If it reaches the main computer, abandoned ship, everyone to the escape pods now." The crew scrambled for the pods. Vexthor was the last to leave. As tradition demanded, he took one final look at his ship through the pod's viewport. As they launched, the Steadfast was changing, its hull rippling and transforming. The proud Corfax vessel was becoming something else, something organic and alien. The escape pods scattered, running on basic thrusters. Vexthor set a course for the nearest inhabited system and locked it in. Behind them, the thing that had been the Steadfast stopped changing. It turned, orienting on the organic ship that had attacked them. Then, to Vexthor's horror, it moved to join it. 2 ships now. The enemy had grown. "Send the message," he told his aide, who was sharing his pod. "Everything we saw, everything we recorded. Send it on all frequencies. The galaxy needs to know." They sent the warning. Then they huddled in their escape pod and ran, hoping their small craft was too insignificant for the organic ships to notice. Behind them, the 2 vessels turned and headed deeper into Corfax space. The message reached Corfac Fleet Command 8 hours later. Admiral Thector read it 3 times, unable to believe what he was seeing. A ship that adapted to weapons, a ship that consumed other vessels and turned them into more of itself. It was impossible. It violated everything they knew about physics, biology, technology. But the message was genuine. The encryption was correct. And Commander Vexthor was a reliable officer, not given to flights of imagination. Assemble Battle Group 3, Therid. We'll handle this threat before it spreads. Battle Group 3 consisted of 5 Sunbreaker-class dreadnoughts and 20 support vessels. They could level a planet or destroy an entire fleet. They were the pride of the Corphacy, each one powered by a captured star fragment, each one carrying enough firepower to crack a moon. They found the organic ships in Sector 442, approaching another colony world. There were 7 of them now. They had found more vessels to consume. Admiral Thector didn't bother with communication. These things had destroyed a colony, consumed a Korak ship, and were clearly hostile. He ordered an immediate attack. The dreadnoughts fired their main weapons simultaneously, 5-star bright beams of pure energy, each one carrying the power of a small sun. The organic ships didn't even try to dodge. The beams hit with enough force to vaporize an asteroid field. The organic ships absorbed the energy. Tetor watched in disbelief as his most powerful weapon simply vanished into those shifting hulls. Then the organic ships began to glow, brighter and brighter, until they were miniature suns themselves. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, voice shaking. "They're storing the energy, all of it, and I think they're preparing to fire it back. Shields to maximum. All ships evasive." The organic ships released the stored energy, not in a single beam, but in dozens of them, each one targeted at a different Korax vessel. The dreadnoughts' shields held for exactly 3 seconds. Then they failed. Overloaded by their own weapons turned against them. The first dreadnought exploded, then the second, then the third. "Retreat," Hector ordered. All ships jumped to hyperspace. They tried, but the organic ships had learned something new. They were generating some kind of interference field, preventing the Korax vessels from engaging their jump drives. Manual retreat. Full conventional thrust. Get us out of this field. They ran. The organic ships pursued leisurely, like predators, toying with wounded prey. They picked off the support vessels one by one, each attack adding to their numbers. By the time the surviving Corfax ships escaped the interference field and jumped away, Battle Group 3 had been reduced to 2 damaged dreadnoughts and 5 support vessels. Admiral Thector had lost 3 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy to an enemy he didn't understand. An enemy that learned from every attack that grew stronger, with every encounter that seemed unstoppable. He sent an emergency message to the Galactic Council. The message was simple. We need help. We need it now, before this spreads to all of us. The Council convened within hours. Representatives from across the galaxy gathered, reading the reports from the Korax hegemony with growing horror. An adaptive enemy. An enemy that consumed ships and turned them into more of itself. An enemy that couldn't be fought with conventional weapons because it learned from every attack. The Vitherans sent their best ships, their light-bending cruisers that couldn't be seen or touched. The organic ships, now called the Vexari, from a Korax word meaning the hunger that consumes, didn't need to see. They could sense gravity, heat, thought itself. The invisible ships were destroyed just as easily as any others. The Mycelian Collective sent their living vessels, thinking that organic ships might communicate with organic enemies. Instead, the Vexinari corrupted them, turned them against their own crews, added them to the swarm. The Crystalline Communion sent ships that existed partially in other dimensions. The Vexari learned to follow them between dimensions. Species after species tried. Species after species failed. And with every failure, the Vexari grew stronger, more numerous, more unstoppable. Within 2 months, 15 species had lost their frontier colonies. The galactic border was collapsing. Refugees flooded toward the core worlds carrying stories of planets consumed, of ships that fought back with their own weapons, of an enemy that couldn't be killed because it adapted to everything. The council met again, this time in emergency session. The mood was grim, panicked. For the first time in thousands of years, The species of the galaxy faced a threat they couldn't overcome with their advanced technology. "We need new strategies," said the Harmony Sphere delegate, her light dimming with fear. "New weapons, new tactics. We've tried everything," Kezer reported, his color shifting through shades of desperation. "Every weapon we have, the Vexeri learn to counter. Every tactic we use, they adapt to. They're perfect predators, designed to consume everything in their path. There must be something. The Quillian representative said some weakness we haven't found. If there is, we haven't found it, and we're running out of time to look. At their current rate of advancement, they'll reach the core worlds within a year." Silence fell over the council chambers. A year. That was all they had left. Then a junior delegate from a minor species raised a tentacle. Tentatively, "What about the humans?" The suggestion was met with uncomfortable silence. Kessethar's color shifted to something like embarrassment. "The humans, their technology is primitive. What could they possibly do that we cannot?" "I don't know," the junior delegate admitted. "But they asked for frontier postings. They wanted to be where the threats are. Maybe they know something we don't." "That's ridiculous," rumbled. "They use kinetic weapons and chemical fuel. The Vexenari would destroy them in seconds." But even as he said it, he remembered Admiral Chen's smile, that knowing, cold smile, like she had been waiting for something. The Harmony Sphere delegate's light flickered thoughtfully. "We have nothing to lose by asking. If they refuse or fail, we're no worse off than we are now. And if they succeed?" asked Cassithar. No one had an answer for that. The idea that primitive humanity could succeed where the advanced species of the galaxy had failed was too absurd to consider seriously. But they were desperate. "Send a delegation to Earth," the council agreed. "Ask for their help. Promise them whatever they want. Technology, territory, resources. We need every option, no matter how unlikely." The delegation was chosen. They prepared their arguments, their appeals, their offers. They expected to beg. They expected to gravel. They expected the humans to either refuse outright or demand impossible prices for their inadequate help. They had no idea that Admiral Chen had been expecting their call, or that humanity had been preparing for this exact scenario since they first entered the galaxy. The delegation departed for Earth, carrying the hopes of a galaxy on the edge of destruction. Behind them, the Vexari continued their advance, consuming world after world, learning from every encounter, growing stronger with every victory. The countdown had begun, and somewhere on Earth in a hidden facility on the moon, Admiral Sarah Chen looked at her assembled fleet and smiled that same cold smile. "Finally," she said softly, "they're ready to listen." The delegation arrived at Luna Station, expecting desperation. They had prepared speeches about shared galactic duty, about the importance of unity in the face of extinction. They had authorized massive concessions, trade deals, technology sharing agreements, anything to get the humans to help, even though that help would likely be symbolic at best. Instead, Admiral Sarah Chen met them at the docking port with a single question. "What took you so long?" Kessithar felt his color shift to confusion. The human stood before them in the same plain gray uniform she had worn at Zenith Prime, looking completely calm. Behind her, human military personnel moved with purpose, checking equipment and reading displays. Everything seemed ready. "Admiral Chen," Kessithar began carefully, "we come to request. I know why you're here. The Vexenati, 15 species lost their frontier colonies. The Corfax lost 3 dreadnoughts. The Votheran stealth fleet was wiped out in Sector 339. The Makelian ships were corrupted and turned against their crews. Should I continue?" "You've been tracking the situation," the Harmony Sphere delegate said, her light pulsing with surprise. "We've been tracking it since the first Corfax probe network went dark," Chen confirmed. "We've analyzed every engagement, every tactic, every failure. We know exactly what you're facing. Then you understand how desperate the situation is." Tector rumbled. "We need every resource, every vessel, every rumbled." "You need us," Chen interrupted. "Specifically, that's why you came to Earth, instead of just sending out a general call for aid." Kessithar's colors shifted uncomfortably. "Admiral, please understand that we mean no offense, but humanity's technology is limited. We hoped that perhaps you might contribute to the defense effort in whatever way you can." Supply lines, perhaps, or resource management. Every contribution matters, no matter how small. Chen smiled. It was the same smile from Zenith Prime, and it sent the same chill through the delegates. "Follow me," she said. She led them through Luna Station to a secure transport. They traveled in silence for 20 minutes, moving away from the station and toward the dark side of the moon. The transport descended into what looked like a crater, but as they got closer, the delegates realized the crater was artificial and enormous. The transport settled on a landing platform, and Chen gestured to the viewing windows. "I present the Terran Defense Fleet." The crater was a construction facility, one of the largest the delegates had ever seen, and it was full of warships, thousands of them, human vessels of every size, from small frigates to massive carriers, all sitting in perfect formation. They looked different from the destroyer that had been shown at Zenith Prime. Harder, more aggressive, purpose-built for war. "This is impossible," Kesar breathed, his color cycling through shock and disbelief. "You've only been spacefaring for 200 years. How did you build all this?" "The same way we survived everything else that tried to kill us," Chen replied. "We prepared, we built, we never stopped being afraid." She pulled up a holographic display. It showed the Vexari ships in detail, their structure, their behavior, their tactics. The moment we saw the Vexari threat profile, we knew exactly what we were dealing with. An adaptive enemy, perfect predators, the kind of threat every species fears, because it can counter anything you throw at it. "Yes," the Harmony Sphere delegate said sadly. "They learn from every attack. Every weapon we use against them becomes useless. They grow stronger, while we grow weaker." "You grow weaker because you fight them with sophisticated technology," Chen said. "Energy weapons they can absorb, computer systems they can hack, advanced materials they can corrupt. You built your weapons for wars against each other. Civilized wars? Wars with rules. And you?" asked Theor. Chen's smile widened. "We built our weapons for wars against extinction. Let me show you." She led them to a briefing room where a human warship was displayed in hologram. It looked brutal compared to the elegant vessels of other species. All angles and armor covered in weapons that stuck out like thorns. "This is a Hellfire-class destroyer, the backbone of our fleet. No energy shields, no fancy quantum computers, no programmable matter, just layered armor, redundant systems, and weapons that the Vexnari have never encountered before. Kinetic weapons," Kesithar said dismissively. "We know they're slow, inefficient. They're ours," Chen interrupted. "The Vexari have fought energy weapons for months now. They've learned to absorb them, redirect them, use them against you. But they've never fought a species that still uses gunpowder and high explosives. Never fought a species that throws chunks of metal at relativistic speeds. Never fought a species that's perfectly happy to get close enough to physically board enemy ships and blow them up from the inside." She pulled up another display. This one showed a human weapon, a missile of some kind. "Nuclear weapons. Every single one of our ships carries them. Lots of them. When the Vexari try to absorb the blast, they find out that nuclear fire doesn't work like energy weapons. It's heat, radiation, and kinetic force all at once. They can't adapt fast enough. Nuclear weapons. The Harmony Sphere delegates light pulsed with horror. But those are barbaric, primitive." "Exactly," Chen said. "And that's why they'll work. You abandoned these weapons thousands of years ago. The Vexari have never encountered them. They have no defense prepared." She pulled up more displays showing weapon after weapon. Chemical incendiaries, magnetic accelerator cannons, railguns, missiles with proximity fuses, and then something that made even Theor, who had seen countless weapons in his career, recoil. "Thermite," Chen said, gesturing to barrels full of gray powder. "Invented in 1893, burns at 2500 degrees Celsius. Burns through metal, through armor, through anything. Can't be put out with water, can't be put out in vacuum, can't be smothered. It just burns until there's nothing left. You want to set them on fire," Kesithar said slowly. "You want to burn the Vexari. The Vexnari adapt to energy. We'll use chemistry. They corrupt computer systems. Our ships can be controlled with manual overrides and mechanical backups. They consume metal. We'll melt it before they can touch it. They learn from every encounter. That's fine. Let them learn what it means to fight a species that never forgot how to wage total war. The delegates looked at each other. What Chen was describing wasn't warfare as they understood it. It was destruction. Pure, brutal destruction, without elegance or sophistication. It was war stripped down to its most basic, terrible form. This is madness, Kesethar said, his color shifting to something like fear. You're talking about turning space into an inferno, about destroying the Vexari through sheer brutality. Yes, Chen agreed calmly. That's exactly what I'm talking about. But we are civilized species. We have rules, protocols, standards of warfare. The Vexari don't care about your rules, Chen said flatly. They're not here to conquer or negotiate. They're here to consume, to turn everything in the galaxy into more of themselves. You can't be civilized with an enemy like that. You can only be more terrifying than they are. He leaned forward. Despite his horror at what Chen was describing, he couldn't help but feel a spark of hope. These humans, these primitive creatures, had a plan. More than a plan. They had weapons designed specifically to fight an enemy like the Vexari. Show us, he said. Show us how you would fight them. Chen pulled up a tactical display. It showed a Vexari swarm advancing on a human fleet. First, we don't run. Every species so far has tried to retreat to fight at range where they think they're safe. The Vexari are faster, more maneuverable. They always catch you, so we don't run. We advance. The hologram showed human ships moving toward the Vexinari swarm. Second, we use weapons they can't adapt too quickly. Nuclear missiles, kinetic impactors, chemical weapons, things that work on basic physical principles, not energy manipulation. They can try to absorb a nuclear blast, but they'll just cook from the inside. The hologram showed nuclear explosions blooming in space, catching Vexinari ships, and overlapping kill zones. Third, we accept losses. Our ships are built with backup systems upon backup systems. A human destroyer can lose 50% of its hull and still fight. Our crews are trained to operate in vacuum if necessary. We seal breaches, vent atmosphere, route around damaged systems, and keep firing. The hologram showed human ships battered and burning, continuing to fight even as they broke apart. Fourth, if we can't destroy them at range, we board them. Humans in armor suits with flamethrowers and demolition charges. We burn out their insides and blow up their cores. The Vexari have never faced an enemy willing to fight them hand-to-hand in the wreckage of their own ships. Kesar's colors went pale. You would sacrifice your crews like that? We would give them a chance to win, Chen corrected. There's a difference. Every human who joins the fleet knows what they're signing up for. We don't hide the truth from them. We tell them exactly how dangerous it is, and they volunteer anyway because they understand what's at stake. This is insanity, the Harmony Sphere delegate whispered. War shouldn't be like this. It shouldn't be so real, Chen offered. Welcome to human warfare, delegates. We've been fighting each other for 10,000 years. We've perfected the art of killing. We know every dirty trick, every brutal tactic, every way to turn the universe itself into a weapon. And now you need us to use all of that against the Vexari. Silence fell over the briefing room. The delegates stared at the tactical displays, at the weapons that looked like they belonged in a museum, at the battle plans that treated casualties as acceptable and boarding actions as routine. You're monsters, Kesar said softly. Yes, Chen agreed without hesitation. When we need to be. The question is, do you want monsters on your side? Or would you rather face extinction with your civilized principles intact? Thera was the first to speak. If we accept your help, what do you want in return? Chen turned off the displays. Nothing. Nothing. We're not doing this for payment. We're doing this because the Vexari will eventually reach Earth if they're not stopped. We're defending our home. If that happens to save your species as well, that's a bonus. Then you'll fight. The Harmony Sphere delegate's light pulsed with desperate hope. We're already fighting, Chen said. We launched our first fleet groups 3 days ago. They should be engaging the Vexari at the frontier within 48 hours. I brought you here to give you a choice. A choice? You can stay out of our way and let us handle this, using our methods, or you can integrate your surviving forces with ours and follow our command structure. Either way, we're going to war, But if you join us, you need to understand something important. Chen's expression became deadly serious. We're not here to save you. We're not here to protect the galaxy's way of life or preserve your civilized standards. We're here to destroy the Vexari by any means necessary. That means nuclear fire. That means chemical weapons. That means turning space itself into hell. If you can't stomach that, stay home. We don't need you. The delegates looked at each other. Everything they believed about warfare, about civilization, about the proper way to resolve conflicts was being challenged. The humans were offering them victory, but at a price they had never imagined paying. How can you be so calm about this? Keshar asked. About sending your people to die in such horrible ways? Chen's expression softened slightly. Because I've seen what happens when you're not willing to do horrible things to survive. Earth has a long history of enemies who needed to be stopped at any cost. Sometimes being the good guys means being willing to do bad things. We learned that lesson over and over again. The Vexari are just the latest test. She walked to the window overlooking the construction facility, gazing out at the assembled fleet. My great-great-grandmother lived through the AI wars, machines that wanted to wipe out biological life. Humanity won that war by doing things that still give us nightmares. My grandfather fought in the colony rebellions, humans killing humans over resources and territory. We nearly destroyed ourselves before we reached the stars. Every generation of humans has faced something that wanted to kill us all, and every generation found a way to survive, no matter how terrible the cost. She turned back to the delegates. That's what we are, delegates. We're the survivors. The species that looked at impossible odds and said, not today. The species that kept finding new ways to fight, new weapons to use, new tactics to try. We're the galaxy's worst nightmare. And right now, you need a nightmare to fight the Vexari. Hector stood, his many eyes focused on Chen, with something like respect. When do we begin? Chen smiled. The war began the moment the Vexinari entered our galaxy. Now it's just a matter of showing them what happens when they mess with the one species crazy enough to weaponize everything, including themselves. She pulled up a star map. Red markers showed Vexinari positions. Blue markers showed human fleet movements. Our forward group should be making contact right about now. A light on her console blinked. A message was coming in from the front lines. Chen read it, and her smile grew wider. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored delegates, I present to you the opening move of humanity's response to the Vexari threat. She displayed the message for everyone to see. First contact successful. Enemy engaged. Deploying Hellfire Protocol. May God have mercy on their souls, because we sure as hell won't. The war had begun, and the galaxy was about to learn what humanity meant by total war. Captain James Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the UNS Indomitable, watching the Vexari swarm approach on the tactical display. 15 contacts, no 20 now. They were multiplying as they consumed debris from previous battles, growing their numbers with every kilometer they advanced. Distance to contact? He asked calmly. 2 million kilometers and closing, sir. They're accelerating. We'll reach engagement range in 14 minutes. Rodriguez nodded. Around him, his crew worked with practiced efficiency. No panic, no fear. Just humans, doing a job they had trained for their entire careers. Communications sent to all ships. Execute Hellfire Protocol on my mark. Aye, sir. All ships acknowledge and are ready. Hellfire Protocol. The name had seemed dramatic when they first coined it. But now, watching the Vexnari approach, Rodriguez thought it was appropriate. They were about to turn space into an inferno. Sir, his tactical officer said, they're launching some kind of probe trying to scan us. Let them look, Rodriguez replied. Won't do them any good. The Vexari had learned from every encounter with galactic forces. They knew how to counter energy shields, how to hack computer systems, how to corrupt advanced materials. But they had never encountered human technology before. They had no reference for chemical rockets, no defense against kinetic weapons, no adaptation ready for nuclear fire. 1 million kilometers, the tactical officer reported. Missile batteries prepare full salvo. Target their lead ships. Targeting solutions locked, sir. Fire. The Indomitable shuddered as 50 missile ports opened and released their weapons. The missiles were crude compared to the elegant munitions used by other species. Simple rockets with chemical fuel, guided by basic computers, and armed with nuclear warheads. Ancient technology by galactic standards. Perfect by human standards. The missiles streaked toward the Vexari swarm. The organic ships did what they always did. They prepared to absorb the incoming energy. Their hulls rippled, creating structures designed to capture and redirect weapons fire. Then the nuclear warheads detonated. The first explosion was close enough to catch 3 Vexari ships. The blast wasn't like an energy weapon. It was heat, radiation, and kinetic force all at once. The Vexari hulls, expecting to absorb coherent energy, were instead hit with a chaotic mix of destruction. One ship simply vaporized. Another tumbled away, its organic hull burning. The third tried to adapt, tried to create structures to handle the heat, but the radiation was cooking it from the inside out. Direct hits, the tactical officer reported. 3 enemy ships destroyed or disabled. Reload and fire again. Don't give them time to adapt. The second salvo launched, then the third. The space between the human fleet and the Vexari swarm filled with nuclear fireballs. Some of the Vexari ships began to adapt, growing heat-resistant materials on their hulls. But it wasn't enough. They couldn't evolve fast enough to handle the sheer number of warheads being thrown at them. Sir, they're changing tactics, breaking formation, trying to close with us. Good. Let them come. All ships, prepare kinetic batteries. The surviving Vexanari ships accelerated, moving faster than any natural creature should be able to move. They had learned from the nuclear attacks. Now they wanted to get close to board the human ships and consume them before more missiles could launch. At 500,000 kilometers, the human ships opened up with their railguns. Chunks of metal accelerated to ridiculous speeds by magnetic coils tore through space. No energy to absorb, no computers to hack, just mass and velocity, the most basic physics in the universe. The railgun slugs punched through Vexanari halls like paper. One moment an organic ship was there. The next, it had a hole the size of a small house going straight through it. The Vexanari tried to regenerate, tried to seal the breaches, but more slugs kept coming. The human ships fired in continuous streams, turning the space ahead of them into a killing field of metal. They're still coming, sir, the tactical officer warned. Then we give them what they want. Helm, bring us about. All ships, advance. Meet them head on. Around him, Rodriguez heard his crew members suck in sharp breaths. Advance toward the enemy. Every other species had tried to retreat to fight at range, but Rodriguez knew better. The Vexari were faster. They would always catch you if you ran. The only way to win was to be more aggressive than they were. Sir, they're launching boarding pods, the tactical officer reported. Let them damage control teams, prepare for boarding action. Break out the flamethrowers. The first Vexari boarding pod hit the Indomitable's hull. It burned through the armor with some kind of biological acid, creating an opening. Vexari drones poured through. Organic nightmares with too many limbs and mouths that shouldn't exist. They met Sergeant Maria Santos and her damage control team. Santos had fought in the Mars insurrection. She had cleared rebel tunnels with nothing but a knife and determination. These alien monsters didn't scare her. She leveled her flamethrower and squeezed the trigger. The Vexnari drones had never encountered fire before. Not real fire. Not chemical combustion that didn't care about energy shields or adaptive materials. The flames caught them, and their organic bodies burned beautifully. They tried to adapt, tried to grow fire-resistant tissues, but Santos just kept burning them. When her first tank ran empty, she switched to her backup. When that ran empty, she pulled out thermite grenades and started throwing them. Sector 7 clear, she reported calmly. Moving to Sector 8. Throughout the ship, similar battles raged. Faxinari drones trying to consume the ship from within. Human crews fighting them with weapons that would have made the civilized galaxy recoil in horror. Flamethrowers, acid sprayers, explosive charges set to detonate manually. It was brutal, ugly. Close-quarters combat in narrow corridors filled with smoke and screaming. It was exactly what humanity had trained for. Sir, multiple enemy ships attempting to flank us, the tactical officer said. Helm, roll us 45 degrees port. Show them our vententral batteries. The Indomitable rolled ponderously. The Vexnari ships, expecting the human vessel to be crippled by the boarding action, suddenly found themselves facing fresh weapons. Vententral batteries, fire at will. The magnetic accelerator cannons opened up. These were different from the railguns. Bigger, slower firing, but with even more destructive power. Each shot was a telephone pole-sized chunk of depleted uranium, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. One shot hit a Vexari ship dead center. The kinetic energy didn't just puncture the hull, it transferred into the organic structure, and the entire ship simply came apart. Unable to handle the massive impact. Scratch 3 more. The tactical officer reported with satisfaction. But the battle wasn't one-sided. A Vexinari ship managed to close with the human destroyer Relentless. It latched onto the hull and began consuming it, converting the metal into more of itself. Captain Zhang, commanding the Relentless, didn't hesitate. All hands abandoned ship, set self-destruct for 30 seconds. The crew evacuated in escape pods. 28 seconds later, the Relentless detonated every warhead in its arsenal. The explosion caught the Vexinari ship while it was still attached, still consuming. The organic vessel had no time to adapt, no time to evolve. It was simply destroyed, vaporized by nuclear fire at point-blank range. Relentless is gone, Rodriguez's communications officer reported quietly. Mark Captain Zhang for combination, Rodriguez said. He took one of them with him. That's a win in my book. The battle raged for 3 hours. The Vexari kept adapting, kept evolving, but the humans kept switching tactics. When nuclear weapons became less effective, they switched to kinetic impactors. When the Vexari learned to deflect those, they switched to chemical weapons. When boarding actions became too dangerous, they vented entire sections of their ships to space, sacrificing the compartments to kill the invaders. It was messy. It was brutal. It was war, the way humanity had always fought it, with everything they had, using every trick they knew, accepting casualties as the price of victory. By the end, 12 Vexari ships had been destroyed. The remaining 8 retreated, damaged, and unable to adapt fast enough to the chaos of human warfare. The human fleet had lost 4 destroyers and 2 frigates. Over 300 crew members were dead, but they had won. Rodriguez sat in his command chair, looking at the casualty reports. 300 good people gone. People he had trained with, served with, shared meals with. The weight of their deaths settled on his shoulders like a physical thing. "Sir," his communications officer said softly, "Admiral Chen is on the line." Rodriguez straightened. "Put her through." Chen's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired but grimly satisfied. "Captain Rodriguez, well done. First contact was a success. We lost 6 ships, Admiral. 300 dead. I know. And I'm sorry for every one of them. But you proved that the Vexinari can be beaten. You showed them that humanity doesn't fight like the rest of the galaxy. That's worth the cost." Rodriguez wanted to argue. Wanted to say that no victory was worth 300 lives, but he knew better. He had known the price when he accepted this command. They all had. "What are our orders, Admiral? Push forward. The Vexari will regroup and try again. Don't give them time. Keep hitting them. Keep forcing them to adapt to new tactics. Make them react to us instead of the other way around. Can you do that?" Rodriguez looked at his remaining ships, battered and scarred, but still operational. He thought about his crew, exhausted but unbowed. He thought about the 300 empty bunks in the fleet and the people who would never come home. "Yes, ma'am, we can do that." "Good. The rest of the fleet is moving up to support you. Within a week, we'll have 50 ships in your sector. Within a month, we'll have the full Terran defense fleet engaged. The Vexari have been pushing into the galaxy for months. Time to start pushing back." "Understood, Admiral and Captain. What you did today, what your people did, the galaxy is watching. They're seeing humanity fight for the first time. Really fight. Show them what we're made of." The connection ended. Rodriguez turned to his crew. They looked back at him with expressions he recognized. Fear, yes. Exhaustion, certainly. But also determination, pride. The knowledge that they were doing something important. "All right, people. We've got our orders. Helm set a course for the next Vexari concentration. Engineering. I want damage reports from all ships within the hour. Weapons. Start manufacturing more missiles. We're going back out there. His executive officer leaned close. Sir, the crew needs rest. We all do. The crew needs to win, Rodriguez replied. They need to know that their friends didn't die for nothing. Rest can come later. Right now, we fight. Throughout the fleet, similar conversations were happening. Captains rallying their crews, engineers working double shifts to repair damage, weapons officers loading fresh munitions, medical teams treating the wounded while making room for the next batch. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't civilized, but it was effective. The news of the human victory spread through the galaxy within hours. Species that had written off humanity as primitive, as irrelevant, suddenly realized they had been wrong. The humans had fought the Vexenari and won, not through superior technology or advanced tactics, but through sheer brutal determination. Some species were inspired, others were horrified. All of them paid attention. At Zenith Prime Station, Admiral Kesethar watched the battle recordings with his officers. They saw the nuclear explosions, the kinetic bombardment, the boarding actions fought with flamethrowers and grenades. They saw human ships continuing to fight, even as they were torn apart. They saw crews sacrificing themselves to take enemy vessels with them. This is barbaric, one of his officers said, colors showing disgust. But Kesethar's colors were thoughtful. No, this is war. Real war. We had forgotten what it looked like. Should we join them? Another officer asked. Kesethar thought about it. About his elegant ships with their light-bending technology. About his sophisticated weapons and advanced tactics. About his crews trained for civilized warfare between honorable opponents. Then he thought about humanity, throwing themselves at an unstoppable enemy with ancient weapons and insane courage. Yes, he decided. Send word to Fleet Command. The Vertheran Armada will join the human offensive. It's time we remembered how to fight for survival instead of glory. Similar decisions were being made across the galaxy. The Corax hegemony mobilized its remaining forces. The Crystalline Communion prepared its dimensional ships. Even the peaceful Harmony Sphere began arming their vessels, willing to fight. For the first time in millennia, the galaxy was learning from humanity's example, learning that sometimes to defeat monsters, you had to be willing to become something monstrous yourself. But the lesson wasn't over. The Vexari were still out there, still adapting, still growing, and humanity was just getting started. In the wreckage of the battlefield, among the destroyed ships and floating debris, something stirred. A Vexari fragment, small enough to avoid notice, drifted through space. It had survived the nuclear fire. It had learned from the encounter, and it was evolving. The war was far from over. In fact, it was about to get worse. But humanity was ready. They had always been ready, because they had never forgotten the most important rule of survival. When something wants to kill you, you kill it first. With fire, if necessary. With everything you have, no matter the cost. 3 months. That's how long it took for the tide to turn. 3 months of brutal fighting, of ships burning in space, of crews sacrificing themselves in ways the galaxy had never imagined. 3 months of humanity, showing the universe what total war really meant. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UN's Eternal Vigilance, looking at the tactical display that showed the current front lines. The red markers representing Vexenari forces had been pushed back to their original entry point into the galaxy. The blue markers of human and allied forces surrounded them on 3 sides. "Status report," she commanded. "Ma'am, all fleet groups report ready for final assault." Her tactical officer responded. "We have confirmation from Corax, Votharan, Crystalline, and Mycelian forces. Everyone's in position." Jen nodded. The United Galactic Fleet numbered over 5,000 ships now. Humans made up less than a third of that number, but they commanded the entire operation. Because the galaxy had learned something important over the past 3 months. Humanity knew how to fight ugly, and sometimes ugly was exactly what you needed. Communications open a channel to all fleet commanders. The display flickered, showing the faces of dozens of alien officers. Kesethar was there, his color set to determine blues and reds. Admiral Thector of the Corfax, his many eyes focused intently. Representatives from every major species that had joined the fight. "This is Admiral Chen. In approximately 1 hour, we will begin the final assault on the Vexari hive cluster. I want to be clear about what this means. We're not going to destroy them from a distance. We're not going to use some clever tactic or sophisticated weapon. We're going to do what humanity has done since we first picked up rocks and hit each other with them. We're going to get close, and we're going to break them. She paused, looking at each commander in turn. Some of you will die today. Many of you probably. The Vexari have adapted to our tactics over the past 3 months. They've learned from every encounter. They know what we're going to throw at them. But here's what they don't know. They don't know how far we're willing to go. They don't understand that some species will burn down the entire galaxy before they surrender. Kesar's colors shifted to something like respect. Humanity has taught us much, Admiral. We are ready. Then let's end this. All ships advance. Operation Hellfire is go. The United Fleet move forward as one. Thousands of ships representing hundreds of species, all following human command. It should have been impossible. The galaxy species had fought each other for millions of years, but the Vexari had given them something they had never had before, a common enemy that threatened all of them equally. At the center of the enemy territory, the Vexari hive cluster waited. It was massive, larger than any structure the galaxy had ever built. Dozens of hive ships connected together, forming a biological fortress the size of a small moon. Inside, millions of Vexari drones worked ceaselessly, consuming gathered materials and producing more of themselves. The Vexari had been driven back, but they weren't defeated. They had learned from every battle, adapted to every tactic. They had grown heat-resistant tissues to counter nuclear weapons. They had developed armor against kinetic impactors. They had even found ways to jam human communications and counter some of their chemical weapons. But they hadn't counted on one thing: human creativity and destruction. Range to target: 2 million kilometers, the tactical officer reported. Launch first wave, Chen ordered. The fleet opened fire with everything they had. Nuclear missiles streaked through space. Railgun slugs followed. Energy weapons from the Allied ships added their own destructive power. The Vexari hive cluster's outer defenses activated, spawning defensive drones and creating energy shields adapted from consumed galactic technology. First wave ineffective. Ma'am, outer shells are holding. Chen smiled grimly. As expected, launch second wave thermite payload. This was the weapon humanity had been saving. Thousands of missiles, each one carrying containers of thermite compound mixed with oxidizers that let it burn even in the vacuum of space. The Vexari had never encountered it before. They had no defense prepared. The missile struck the hive cluster's outer shells. The thermite ignited, burning at temperatures that turned metal into liquid and organic materials into ash. The Vexari tissue tried to adapt, tried to grow heat-resistant structures, but thermite didn't care. It just kept burning. Holes opened in the outer defenses. The Vexari rushed to seal them, but more thermite missiles kept coming. The entire outer shell began to glow red, then white, as the chemical fire spread. Third wave. Deploy boarding teams. This was the part that had shocked the galaxy the most. Humanity wasn't just going to destroy the hive cluster from outside. They were going to go inside and tear it apart from within. Boarding pods launched from human ships carrying teams of Marines in heavy armor. They crashed through the weakened outer shells and into the organic corridors of the hive cluster. Behind them came Allied forces, Korax shock troops, Vatheran commandos, even crystalline warriors who had never thought they would fight in such a brutal way. Inside the hive cluster, the battle became personal. Sergeant Maria Santos, who had survived the boarding of the Indomitable 3 months ago, led her team through corridors that pulsed with alien life. Vexari drones swarmed them, but Santos had learned their patterns. She knew where they would come from, how they would attack, how to kill them efficiently. Her flamethrower roared, turning the corridor ahead into an inferno. Her team followed, throwing thermite grenades into side passages and shooting anything that moved. It was brutal work, close, personal, the kind of fighting that civilized species had forgotten how to do. But humans remembered, and they had taught their allies well. Captain Rodriguez report. Chen's voice came over the comm. Captain James Rodriguez was leading the assault on the hive cluster's central core. His ship, the new UNS Indomitable, built to replace the one lost in the early fighting, hung in space near the largest hive ship, its weapons firing continuously. "Admiral, we're encountering heavy resistance. They're throwing everything at us. My ship is at 60% functionality. Can you complete the mission?" Rodriguez looked at his display. His ship was dying around him. Hull, breaches on decks 4 through 7, main reactor running at emergency levels, weapon systems failing one by one. Half his crew was dead or wounded. "Yes, ma'am, we can complete the mission." "Then do it. All ships cover the Indomitable. Get Rodriguez to that core." The fleet rallied around the damaged destroyer. Vertheran cruisers formed a protective screen, their light-bending technology hiding the Indomitable from Vexari sensors. Korax dreadnoughts poured fire into the defensive drones. Crystalline ships phased in and out of dimensions, striking at the hive ships from impossible angles, and humanity kept pushing forward. Rodriguez guided his dying ship closer to the hive cluster's core around him. His crew worked with desperate efficiency. They had lost main power, so they switched to backup systems. They had lost backup systems, so they switched to manual controls. They had lost half their weapons, so they concentrated fire with what remained, distance to core. Rodriguez asked, 200 kilometers, sir, but we're not going to make it. Hull integrity is failing. We've got fires on 6 decks. Life support is down to emergency only." Rodriguez looked at his crew. Young faces, old faces, humans from every corner of Earth and its colonies. They looked back at him with trust, with determination, with the acceptance of what was about to happen. "All hands, this is the captain," he said over the ship-wide comm. "We're not going to make it out of this one, but we're going to make it count. Everyone not essential to navigation or weapons, get to the escape pods. Launch immediately." "Sir," his executive officer protested, "we need every hand." "That's an order, Commander. Get them out." "You too, sir. I'm staying with you." Rodriguez looked at her. Commander Lisa Park had served with him for 5 years. She was a good officer, a good friend. She deserved to live. "No, you're not. Someone needs to survive to tell them what we did here. Make sure they know that the Indomitable went down fighting. That's your duty now." Park's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded. "Aye, sir. It's been an honor. The honor was mine. Now go." Park and most of the crew evacuated. Rodriguez was left with a skeleton crew of volunteers who refused to leave. 15 people staying behind to guide a dying ship to its final destination. 100 kilometers, the navigator reported. The Vexari core loomed ahead, a massive structure that pulsed with organic life. It was the heart of the hive cluster, the central intelligence that coordinated all the others. Destroy it and the entire Vexari presence in the galaxy would collapse, but it was protected. Drones swarmed around it. Energy fields crackled across its surface, and it was adapting even now, growing new defenses based on everything it had learned. "Sir, we can't get through those defenses," the tactical officer said. "Even our remaining missiles won't penetrate." Rodriguez smiled. It was the same cold smile that Admiral Chen had shown at Zenith Prime all those months ago. "Then we don't use missiles," Helm said. "Collision course with the core. All remaining crew get to the escape pod bay. Launch when I give the word, sir." The helmsman asked. "You heard me. We're going to ram them, and we're going to make it hurt." Understanding dawned on the crew's faces. Horror, yes, but also grim satisfaction. If they were going to die, they would take the enemy's heart with them, transferring helm control to your station. "Sir," the navigator said. One by one, the remaining crew members shook Rodriguez's hand and left for the escape pods. The tactical officer was last. "Captain, it's been a privilege." "Likewise. Now get out of here. Tell them I said goodbye." Rodriguez was alone on the bridge of the Indomitable. The ship shuddered around him, dying piece by piece, but it still responded to his commands. It still flew. It still fought. He opened a final channel to Admiral Chen. "Admiral, this is Rodriguez. I'm about to deliver our payload." Chen's face appeared on the screen. For just a moment, her professional mask slipped, and he saw the grief beneath. "Captain, you don't have to." "Yes, ma'am. I do. Someone has to. Might as well be me. Your crew evacuated. Just me now. Going to take this ship right down their throat and blow every warhead we have left. Should make a nice mess." Chen nodded slowly. "Captain Rodriguez, on behalf of the Terran Defense Force and the United Nations of Earth, thank you. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten. Just make sure it counts, Admiral. Make sure we win." We will. I promise you that. Rodriguez closed the channel. He was 50 kilometers from the core now. The Vexari defenses were tearing at his ship, ripping away armor plates, destroying weapon systems. Warning alarms screamed from every console. The view screen showed nothing but the pulsing organic mass of the enemy's heart growing larger with every second. He thought about his family back on Earth. His mother, who had cried when he joined the fleet. His sister, who thought he was crazy for volunteering for frontline duty. His nephew, who wanted to be just like Uncle James when he grew up. He hoped they would understand. He hoped they would be proud. 20 kilometers. The ship was breaking apart now. He could feel the structure groaning around him. Explosive decompression was tearing through the lower decks. The main reactor was going critical. 10 kilometers. He armed every remaining warhead on the ship. Nuclear weapons, thermite bombs, conventional explosives, everything. When the Indomitable hit that core, it would be carrying enough destructive force to level a city 5 kilometers. The Vexari core loomed in front of him, filling the entire view screen. He could see it trying to adapt, trying to create defenses against the incoming threat, but it was too late. Nothing could stop the Indomitable now. 1 kilometer, Rodriguez took a deep breath. He thought about Admiral Chen's words at that first battle, about humanity being the species that never forgot how to fight for survival, about being willing to do terrible things to win. He hoped she was right. "This is Captain James Rodriguez, of the UNS Indomitable," he said quietly. Even though no one was listening, ramming speed, the Indomitable struck the Vexari core at full velocity. For a moment, nothing happened. Then every warhead on the ship detonated simultaneously. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. The Vexari core, the heart of their entire presence in the galaxy, simply ceased to exist. The blast wave tore through the surrounding hive ships, destroying some, crippling others. And throughout the Vexari swarm, the drones stopped. Without their central intelligence, without the core to coordinate them, they became just mindless organic matter drifting in space. On the bridge of the Eternal Vigilance, Admiral Chen watched the explosion fade. Around her, the bridge crew was silent. They had just witnessed an act of sacrifice that would be remembered for generations. "All ships," Chen said quietly. "Cease fire. Target all remaining Vexari structures. Wipe them out. Leave nothing." The United Fleet moved forward. Without resistance, they systematically destroyed every trace of the Vexari presence. Every hive ship, every drone, every fragment that might regenerate and start the cycle again. It took 6 hours. 6 hours of methodical destruction, of burning and blasting until nothing remained but debris. When it was over, Chen opened a channel to the entire fleet. "This is Admiral Chen. The Vexari threat has been eliminated. The galaxy is secure. All ships, return to your home ports. And remember what we did here. Remember what we paid." Cheers erupted across the fleet. Celebrations, relief. But on the Eternal Vigilance's bridge, Chen just stood quietly, thinking about Captain Rodriguez and the hundreds of others who had died to win this victory. "Ma'am," her communications officer said gently, "the Galactic Council is requesting your presence. They want to hold a ceremony, awards, recognition, that sort of thing." Chen nodded. "Tell them I'll be there. But first I want casualty reports from all human ships. Every name, every face. They deserve to be remembered." The reports came in over the next few hours. 742 human vessels had been destroyed during the 3-month campaign. 23,000 crew members had died. Thousands more were wounded, many permanently. It was a staggering loss, the worst in human history. But they had won. 3 days later, Chen stood in the Great Hall of Zenith Prime Station, the same hall where humanity had been mocked just months earlier. But the mood was different now. The assembled delegates stood as she entered, a sign of respect that would have been unthinkable before. Admiral Kestar approached her. His colors were somber, respectful. "Admiral Chen," he said formally, "on behalf of the Vetheran Star Empire and the Galactic Council, I wish to thank humanity for your sacrifice. You saved us all. We saved ourselves," Chen corrected. "That you were saved as well was a bonus. Still, we owe you a debt we can never repay. Name your price. Territory, resources, technology, Whatever humanity desires. Chen looked at him for a long moment. Then she shook her head. We don't want payment, but we do want something. Name it. Respect. Not for our technology or our sophistication, but for what we are, for what we had to become to survive. Kesithar's color shifted to understanding. You have it. I was wrong, Admiral. When I saw your ships at the exhibition, I thought they were primitive. I thought you were weak. I didn't understand that sometimes the old ways are old because they work, because they're tested, because they're the methods that species use when they have no other choice. And now, Chen asked, now I understand that humanity is the galaxy's insurance policy. When something comes that we can't defeat with our elegant weapons and sophisticated tactics, we need the species that remembers how to fight dirty, how to fight mean, how to fight with fire. Chen smiled slightly. Just remember that lesson, Admiral, because the Vexenari won't be the last threat. The universe is a dangerous place. There will always be something out there that wants to kill us all. And humanity will be ready. Humanity is always ready. We never had the luxury of forgetting what it means to fight for survival. The ceremony continued. Awards were given. Speeches were made. The galaxy celebrated its victory and mourned its losses. But in the back of the hall, a group of young recruits from various species stood together watching the proceedings. They wore the mixed uniforms of the newly formed Galactic Defense Force, a joint military organization that combined the best of every species. One of them, a young Vetherian, turned to his human colleague. Do you think we'll ever face something like the Vexari again? The human, a fresh-faced Enin, who had been too young to fight in the war, nodded seriously. Probably. The universe is big. There are always threats out there, and we'll be ready. The ensign smiled. It was a familiar smile, the same cold determination that Admiral Chen had shown. We're learning from the best. Humanity taught us that you don't need the fanciest weapons or the most advanced technology. You just need the will to do whatever it takes to survive. And we're all learning that now. Humans, Varian, Korax, everyone. We're learning to fight together, to fight smart, to fight dirty when we have to. The Vetherian's color shifted to something like pride. The galaxy laughed at human ships once. Yeah, the Enin agreed. They stopped laughing when the war began. With fire, the Valarian added. With fire, the Enin confirmed. On the podium, Admiral Chen finished her speech. She talked about sacrifice, about duty, about the price of peace. But her final words were directed at the entire galaxy. We are not warriors because we love war. We are warriors because we love what we protect. Our homes, our families, our future. And we will fight for them with everything we have, using every weapon we can create, employing every tactic we can conceive, not because we want to, but because we have to. She paused, looking out at the assembled delegates. The Vexnari taught us a lesson. They taught us that the universe doesn't care about our rules, or our civilization, or our desire for elegant solutions. Sometimes the universe throws something at us that can only be stopped through sheer brutal determination, through fire if necessary, through sacrifice always. She straightened her voice, ringing through the hall. Humanity stands ready to face whatever comes next. We hope you'll stand with us, not as subjects or followers, but as allies who understand what it means to fight for survival. Together, we can face anything. Apart, we might fall to the next threat. The hall erupted in applause. Every species, every delegate, showing their agreement and their respect. The galaxy had learned its lesson. They had learned to respect humanity, not for what they had, but for what they were willing to do. They had learned that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. They had learned that fire, the most primitive tool in the universe, was still one of the most effective. And most importantly, they had learned that when the galaxy faced extinction, you needed the species crazy enough to weaponize everything, including themselves. As the ceremony ended and the delegates dispersed, Chen stood alone for a moment, looking up through the transparent dome at the stars. Somewhere out there, Captain Rodriguez and 23,000 others drifted in the void, their sacrifice ensuring that those stars would shine on a living galaxy. "We won," she whispered. "We did it. Rest well, Captain. You earned it." Then she turned and walked away, ready for whatever came next, because humanity was always ready. They never forgot how to fight, and they never would. The war was over, but the legend had just begun. The legend of the species that the galaxy had laughed at, right up until the moment they needed them. The species with the primitive ships and the ancient weapons. The species that saved them all with fire.